One Piece chapter 1012 is out, and if you did not quite enjoy the last chapter, I think you're gonna feel satisfied with this one. We get a nice little cover story with Kid crafting a metallic bird while other birds nest in his hair, and I really like the detail that Oda put into what Kid has crafted here, just because if he actually has the ability to craft something like this with such intricate detail, that would actually be really cool as far as like combat wise. Like, I know that his Punk Gibson is pretty much a combination of a bunch of metallic parts that work as a robot, and they even aren't connected, sometimes they float midair. But the intricacies of this bird itself look really interesting. If you look at just the art itself, you can see all the tiny pieces that are going together and making this. It'd be really cool if you made something like that now, maybe like to fight Big Mom. The chapter starts with the Scabbards still making their way to Momo and trying to cut off Kanjuro before he does anything worse. Now, what's happening here is what I kind of expected, which is that the Scabbards are breaking off and going on their separate ways as they pretty much make sure the path is set for Kinemon to get to Momo. Now you have people going to help the rest of the Alliance, you have people taking on new enemies, and then you have Kinemon pretty much making a beeline. Now, Okiku and Izo have some banter together, kind of just talking about when Izo left and how Okiku felt. And it's weird because we haven't seen a lot from them as far as like siblings. We have the flashback and then we have them kind of coming together, but there isn't a lot to kind of reflect on at this moment in time. It feels like we're missing pieces to their story, which I think would help us kind of get into the headspace of where they're at. There's also the talk of the itch for battle, which is kind of the theme of this chapter. Everyone kind of gets an itch that gets them in a battling mood. For the Scabbards, this makes me think that they're getting prepared for death, but doing it in a jovial way. Because they're talking about, what happens when we open Wano. This itch isn't going away until I die. The comments that they're making are just like, maybe they aren't gonna make it through this, and maybe they know that, but they're still having these positive thoughts for the endgame. Kinemon tells the squad to split up and everyone goes their separate ways. Okiku goes with Kinemon because she wants to go ahead and finish off Kanjuro. Now, how is this going to work? Because I think, Kanjuro is injured, Okiku is injured, but I don't know if Okiku can necessarily finish off Kanjuro. I think that the reason that Okiku and Kinemon are going together is because I think there's going to be that extra bump needed to take out Kanjuro. They're still going to have a hard time killing off this person they thought was their friend. Kawamatsu and Izo are leaving to help the rest of the Alliance. I don't know where Denjiro is at this point in time. And then Neko sees some of the other minks and gets an update on Pedro, which, if you think about it, he doesn't know that Pedro is dead yet, and it's been such a long time since that's happened. It's hard to kind of grasp how Neko doesn't have that info yet. But he gets the update, and he reacts in the way I expect Neko does. Like, he kind of takes it, he's obviously upset about it, but then he's like, okay, so the person who did it's here. Let's go fight. And he speeds off towards Perospero. Now, I think this is an interesting twist because I was not expecting Perospero's fight to be with Nekomamushi. I was pretty convinced that him and Marco were going to scrap at some point, and maybe they've already started, but when Neko comes in, all that's over. Then we hop over to Yamato, and it looks like Yamato is getting ready to go fight. Also has that itch to get in there and just throw some hands. You love to see it. At some point, Shinobu has made contact with Kinemon, so they're staying behind and I'm assuming waiting for him to show up, while Yamato goes on. Now, as Yamato is leaving, we get an update on the Luffy fight via Momo, and it's so interesting to see him use this ability, because he can tell how Luffy's feeling, he can tell like Luffy's energy levels. It seems like he can gather so much information just by listening to what voices he can hear. And he doesn't seem to be too surprised at this ability at all. It seems almost natural to him now. And he hears that there's only 2 voices left, so that's a 1v1. And this pretty much tells Yamato that, you know what, I gotta go. I gotta get up there. So what I think is going to happen here is we're going to see a 2v1 Luffy and Yamato versus Kaido. Now, this makes more sense to me because 1v1, I think Luffy still loses. Even if he's got the Conqueror's Haki coding, even if he's got, maybe another Gear 4th in him, maybe a Gear 5th, I think he still loses to Kaido in a 1v1. That's just how I see it. And once Yamato leaves, Momo starts reading Odin's journal. Now, what does this mean for the story? Because, as I mentioned before, this journal is basically spoilers for the rest of the series. That's how I view it. So, the fact that it would seem to be like Momo and Yamato have read this journal, and those are two potential people that want to join the crew, or we want to join the crew at least. So to have them with this knowledge on the crew, it worries me a little bit, just because I know Luffy doesn't want any, basically cheat codes to the One Piece. He wants to get there through adventure. So he's not going to want any help from Owen's journal, which would basically have all the answers that we're looking for in the end game. So how that's going to play out, I'm not entirely sure. I want to know why we have so many people who know what's happening in the journal, but how we're going to deal with that information. Now I gotta hand it to Oda. He is a master troll. When he wants to, he will rile the fandom up, and he will not care what happens. Because the Sanji part of the story, I think, is definitely made to just ruffle all the feathers of the Zoro versus Sanji. And honestly, I really enjoyed this part of the chapter. I really enjoyed the interactions with pretty much everyone in this part of the chapter. And this is coming from a person who doesn't particularly like Sanji. I like what happens here. Basically, we have Sanji carrying around a terribly injured Zoro in what a hilarious cross shape of bandages, because tons of bones are broken. He's in no shape to be moving whatsoever. And we have Sanji carrying him to what looks to be the live stage by the end of this segment. We flash back a little bit and we see how he got there, but Law shambles in and basically Sanji runs up and catches him. Now, Law, just repping being my second favorite character, everything Law does in this chapter is fantastic. First off, he lands on Sanji, and he is in the most typical Law pose that ever existed. He has his arm just resting on his lap, he has his legs crossed, he has his sword over the shoulder, and he's just talking in the most calm voice he can. This is peak Law. This is why I love Law so much. But he basically tells Sanji what needs to happen with Zoro, and then he runs off to fight Big Mom. So this also means we're going to have, at minimum, a 2v1 versus Big Mom as well, which also makes more sense because Kid was not doing anything solo versus Big Mom. And as a side note, the moment where Sanji is bandaging up Zoro is really nice for the crew interaction, because we have Sanji and Zoro talking about how he got into that state, and Zoro mentions Big Mom and Kaido pretty much put him in the state. And Sanji gives Zoro props for making it up there and fighting with him. He says, yeah, there's nothing to sneeze at. You actually made it up there. You were throwing hands. Like, I gotta give you props for that. And Zoro isn't like insulting Sanji or, calling him names or telling him he has to help him. Like, it's just a wholesome moment between these two that we probably haven't really seen in a very long time. And I think in the midst of all this Zoro versus Sanji stuff, it's really nice to see. But while Sanji was making his way to Momo, he runs into Izo and Kawamatsu, and they let him know that Kinemon's on his way there, so he doesn't have to go there anymore. Zoro then directs him to a live stage, and that's where they're headed. Now, the last part of the chapter is something that I also really enjoyed, because it was another set of turns and events that I kind of wasn't expecting, Like, I knew that Ulti was going to charge at Big Mom because she hid Pepe. I knew that was happening. Page 1 is knocked into the ground, but he's still in zone form, so I'm pretty sure he's going to be fine. If anything, he's just not going to move for a little bit, but he's getting back up. Also, if you notice, while Ulti is charging at Big Mom, it looks like Oda did not add her mask, so you can kind of see. I assume this is what she looked like without her mask. And again, Ulti best girl, that's all I'm saying. Nami and Usopp see this interaction, and Nami tries to get Big Mom and Ulti to pretty much fight even harder, but Big Mom's not having it. Big Mom said, nah, shut up. After I go after Ulti, you're next. And I love it, because even though we had the mothering mode last chapter, I think it makes sense that Big Mom is not out of her state of mind. She's a parent. It's amazing how well Oda can tie something in from last chapter to this chapter, and it speaks to how we see things, because even I saw the mothering mode as this could be potentially, maybe I won't like what comes out of this. But I really like what's happening here, and I think it speaks to Oda because he's very good at tying things together. I mean, I don't necessarily doubt Oda, but there's gonna be things that, you know, sometimes I don't like or sometimes that I think might be a problem. But Oda just has such a good way of bringing it back and being like, no, it's fine, don't worry about it. But basically, Ulti and Big Mom are talking about going after Nami after they fight each other. And while Nami, Usopp, and Tama take this chance to run, Ulti says no and goes in after them. Now, in hybrid form, she speed blitzes up to Komichio and knocks him out with a headbutt, and that's impressive. Like, honestly, of all of the Toby Robo, I have really enjoyed Ulti the most. Like, character-wise, fight-wise, design-wise, I really like Ulti. I just want more from Ulti. I want her to have, I don't know, just more fights. I want her to be around the story a lot more. Tama comes in begging for Ulti to stop hitting Komichio, and Ulti doesn't have it. She pretty much, it looks like she just slaps, but I mean, a slap with the Zoan Raptor Claw probably doesn't feel good, because you see blood leaving Tama's face. And I want to point this out because Oda did such a job of keeping us from seeing, you know, like Nami getting hurt. We skipped over that entire part. We didn't see Nami get hit, we just saw her bloodied. But here, we fully see Tama get smacked upside the head and bleed out of her mouth. And this sets off Big Mom and it sets off Nami, which I really wasn't expecting. But it makes sense. Nami always has this, honestly, her own mothering mode when it comes to kids. So seeing Tama get hurt like that, of course that would drive her be mad. And Big Mom was already mad about people, you know, burning down Okabori Town, and now they're hitting Tama. Like, Ulti is pretty much in a 2v1 because I know Big Mom is going to set her sights on Ulti first, and I know that Nami is going to be attacking Ulti. So what looks like a 1v1v1 might eventually turn into a 2v1, and that might be how they write Ulti out of the fights. Basically, this fight is going to last until Law and Kid get here and they take on Big Mom, because Nami's not going to do it. And as much as I want Ulti to have a straight fight with Big Mom, I think that ends in the same way it ended with page 1. All in all, I really enjoyed this chapter. It satisfied a lot of kind of empty feelings I had from the last chapter, and it made me excited for what these new setups look like. Now, there will be a poll in the description below. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.
You know they say that kings aren't born with me, and maybe I'd agree if I weren't born this way. I know that sometimes I don't have a lot to say, but this scepter has my name in it.